Let me turn off my fan. So humid here. I did not miss this. Jill's wearing the same shirt. Hey, Druid and Robin's here. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's so good to see you. And Jill, I'm so sorry. I have been not calling you back. I saw you called me last night. My sleep is so messed up, you guys. I feel like every time I go to the West Coast, I acclimate right away because I'm a night owl. So, no big deal. It's midnight. And it doesn't make sense, right? But then when I come back, oh my gosh, I just can't even. So I think I'm just about there. I slept in late this morning, and I'm hoping to get back to a better sleep schedule. But note to self, don't take red eyes. I'll get to that later. Remind me if I don't. Oh my gosh, there was almost a international incident on a Southwest flight, and not pooping in a seat. Oh my gosh, you guys, that was the day my mother and I flew out there. My husband calls me and he's like, "Y'all didn't poop on a seat, did ya?" Oh my gosh, what on earth is going on? Okay. For some reason, the chat bot stream elements thing did not like turd, I guess. Turd. Oh, you guys, I've missed you so much. Okay, where do I even start? Oh my goodness. Oh, Druid, I'm so glad that you're back home. At least I hope you are I hope you're there for forever now. But anyway, adjusting to home is always good to be back home, but then you have to adjust to it. So Jill keeps calling me. Yeah, you do. You absolutely do have to tune into the stream to know what I've been up to. I promise, Jill. I promise I'm going to call you. It's just been like, you know what? It's been one thing after another. Anyway, my trip to Temecula and San Diego was wonderful. But like I said, cross-country trips, and you're there for however many days. Give me a break, Jill. And, you just have to get, recombobulated. And if you guys remember, I was at my dad's right before I left. I literally was I don't even think I was home for 24 hours. In fact, I know I wasn't home for 24 hours. I was home for, 12 hours, and I had to get on a flight. So, literally, I have a mountain of laundry I need to do. I got nothing done this weekend. But I have one major thing that I have crossed off my list, and I have to show you guys. I should not be showing it because I'm not supposed to publish or post but I think this is probably safe. You guys, I hand-pieced all of these 9 patches over the past 2 weeks. It's 24 of them. I hand cut everything. There were absolutely no rotary cutters involved. I did all this by hand while I was traveling and a little bit before. So yes, I have already folded under the edges because I can't give away too much because this is for my study quilt. But yes, the edges are folded under for a reason. Once my study quilt is out in the world, it's going to be a while, but I can tell you guys about it once it gets hatched. But yeah, so you might recognize, if you're a lady of a certain age like me, you might recognize some of these prints from the 80s. How do I do it so it stays consistent? Well, that's the thing about hand piecing. Is that, if you use so the old school way of hand piecing is, you use templates and you draw around the templates and you just need to stitch on that line. And really, seam allowance doesn't matter much. Obviously you want enough seam allowance so that your seams don't come out. But it doesn't have to be a 1/4 inch. It could be more. It could be a little bit less. I think less than a 1/4 inch you get into possibly falling apart territory. But yeah, that's the back looks like. I don't know. Some of these I drew my lines with a friction pen. Do you guys know about friction pens? I don't know if I have one at my desk. For the longest time, I was very anti-friction pen. But hey, Quiltish! If only someone would invent a machine. Well, it's hard to travel with a sewing machine. So I love hand work. So hand piecing is not a thing I want to do forever. But for this particular quilt, I felt the need to hand piece, and because I was traveling, I thought I will knock this out, and I did. So I'm really, really proud of myself. But anyway, friction pens. I thought I had one at my desk, but anyway, they were first marketed as like an erasable ballpoint or an erasable gel pen, and they sell them like, you know, you can buy them in the store. They have like a Walmart, Target in the pen and stationery section, but it's got like a little plastic thing on the end of the cap, and you rub it, and the heat from the friction makes the pen go away. So can we call you Half Pint? What? All right, guys. Are you what's the British term for that? You taking the piss out of me? Laura Ingalls. Yeah. You could call me Half Pint. But anyway, so the friction pen, quilters have used the friction pen to draw like quilting designs and whatnot. And when you apply heat, it's supposed to go away. And I accidentally pressed some of these before I turned the edges under, and I was like, oh, damn, the friction pen went away. So that's why I don't like friction pens. The other thing is, friction pens technically can come back. If you've like impregnated your fabric with the friction pen, and then you use the heat of your iron, it goes away. You put your quilt out in the car where it's cold, the friction pen comes back, possibly. So anyway, I've never really loved them, but I marked a good number of these with the friction pen. I thought I had one here at my desk, and I gave the one I had with me while I was traveling to my mom. Every time I'm looking for a pen, that's the only pen I find, but look for it now. Can I find it? No. It looks just like a regular gel pen, but it's got this little plastic nib on the end. I will find it. I hadn't showed it. It just is not in my pen cup here on my desk. Probably because, again, every time I went to grab a pen, I was grabbing it and I was like, oh, go to hell, friction pen. But it looks just like a regular pen, a regular gel pen. Anyway, all right. So, yay! Cake did a thing. Temecula, you guys. Oh my goodness. It was so much fun. I saw lots of friends, old friends, new friends. I saw some folks that I had seen very recently in Lincoln. I met some new people that I didn't know until this past week. So it was a lot of fun. And of course, quilts. So many quilts. There comes a point, and I know you guys are just going to go like, what? There comes a point where I can't look at any more quilts. I just had to go outside with my sewing. I had to go outside with my little piecing and just sit outside and piece by myself, because the quilts it's a never ending array of quilts. There's enough retreat attendees that come from California that they bring a lot with them. And even some folks that traveled had a lot with them, surprisingly. I think a couple people might have packed an extra suit, brought an extra suitcase, or I don't know. Maybe I wasn't paying attention and they wore the same outfit all week because their suitcase was just that one outfit and all the quilts. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so many quilts. Now, here's the unfortunate thing. I can't show you very many of them because some of the folks there are you can go ahead and take pictures, but you cannot show these pictures on social media, and this is considered social media. So they don't want images of their quilts out there. And in some cases, it's people that are still doing research and lectures, and they really want to keep images of their quilts under wraps, specifically for their own use. And it's kind of like intellectual property, it's their stuff. Some collectors just don't like their stuff out there. So that's the unfortunate part. However, I do have permission to show a few things. But one big batch of things, you're going to have to wait until quilt nerding, because it pertains to what Jill and I are reading on Quilt Nerding, which, if you haven't been around there, it's Portable Patchwork by our friend Pam Weeks. And our friend Arlene got some amazing patchwork blocks that have they're bound like a pot holder quilt, but they've never been put together, and they are gorgeous. And she gave me permission to show them. So Jill still needs to see all of them also, because she hasn't even seen all of them, but we'll probably show those over on that stream. So gotta pay attention to that. If you can't make it, obviously we have the recording, so I'll have to wait there. Yeah, I know, Jill, if they didn't want photos shared, yeah. Everybody takes the pictures. That's the thing, but it's really enforced. Like, these don't go on social media. And, you have to ask. And, I mean, this. I'm preaching to the choir here. And so I have a list of people that I do want to get back to find out if they would let me show some images, because there were a couple things I saw where I was like, oh my God, so cool. So yeah, Jared, what were you just saying about, you've had your hands on some quilts and a treadle sewing machine? That is so cool. So is it in working order, this treadle machine? Is it something that you might try your hand at using? That would be so cool. I know you make clothes too, so those are good for doing nice long seams, like in skirts and things. Just a heads up. All right, so where to start? Well, first of all, so I won't forget, I will start with this little doll-like quilt. So if you're going to tinker with it, we have a couple of people here I know that do sewing machine tinkering. I think Robin knows a little bit. We haven't seen Kenny in a while, but I know Kenny does. And I've done a little bit, not so much with treadles, but I've done a little bit with machines too. So let us know if you run into anything, and we'll see if we can find an answer for you. Or, there's lots of tutorials online and stuff. So this little beauty, one of the lecturers was Lena DeMarco, and she is a fellow AQSG member. I think she was actually AQSG president at one time. And she has a love of a certain time period of quilts, but she also collects doll quilts and quilts made by girls. And so this is what her two lectures were about. One was about doll quilts, and one was about quilts made by girls like 5 to 18. So, and some of them she has, like, she knows like the history of them or has kind of a provenance. Others, it's really just conjecture. But anyway, long story short, we walk in the first night, and there's all of these gorgeous little quilts hanging on lines. And hey, Jen. Oh my gosh, yes. The doll quilts are so amazing. And I'm going to ask her if I can show a few of them, because they're just really neat. So anyway, Leah Zieber, which she is sometimes here, when she's working on stuff, she'll pop in. So you guys have probably seen her. She's Finn McCool's mom. She had kind of a catastrophic injury last year. She broke her ankle in a real bad way. I won't give you the details because it made me kind of go like, oh, when she told the story. I'm like, ah. Suffice to say, she had to have surgery, all the stuff. But she had to be off of her feet like all of last summer and fall, So our dear girlfriend pulled out all of her little loose blocks and made us. Now there are 50 people at this thing. I think there might have been like 49 because one person last minute couldn't come. She made us each one of these. And we got to do it like drawing style. So she was pulling names. I literally was one of the last people. I think I was the second to the last person. I was like, oh, because, you know, you kind of were looking at the line and you're like, all right, maybe my name's coming up. That's the one I want. But if that one goes, then that's the one I want. And then, okay, that's the one I want. Of course, like the 5 or 10 where I was like, oh, that's my favorite. Oh, that's my favorite. Somebody else snatched them up. But I got this gorgeous thing. And I mean, look at it. Jill, are you salivating yet? It is very, as our friends in Pennsylvania say, very Dutchy. It's got that pink and green and white and yellow. The pink is that like lovely, lovely double pink. And yes, these are antique blocks on the front, in very good condition. Well, I thought for a minute, I was like, oh, maybe I could give this to Jill. No, you can't have this. The back of it is a reproduction. She's used a reproduction fabric, and I think the binding is also reproduction. She very closely matched the binding, though, to one of the antiques. So, I mean, you see, they're different fabrics, obviously, but it's a really good match for, you know, this, to blend it all. And I think she's got a label on here that says, and this is a really great idea. All the stuff hanging out in your car. Yeah. I have things that Jill has in her car that I couldn't fit in my suitcase when I came back from Minneapolis. But this is a really good idea. If you do things with like this, using other fabrics with antique or vintage blocks, she put this label on it, and I'll read to you what it says. Compliments of Temecula Quilt History Retreat 2025. Quilt top is all authentic antique or vintage blocks and fabrics. Quilt back and binding is antique reproduction prints. So I think that's like a really good way to, so that, you know, if I give this away, or, you know, if, I don't know, I win the lottery and I just disappear, I change my name and disappear, then, and somebody comes and inherits all of my things, they'll have some idea of what they're looking at. Because a lot of people are making things like this, and it's nice to, you know, the next person that gets it to know that wherein lies the value of the thing, is that the antique stuff is on the front and the rest of it is reproduction. So there are some sellers that will dealers that will have things like that, and they don't let people know accurately what's going on. So it's nice to label as such. Okay. So, as you may remember, last year we get a fantastic goodie bag, and I'll show you some of the cool things. And again, this is stuff like Leah and her helpers make this stuff all year long. And put together these fantastic goodie bags. And like I said, she had an injury. Now, if I had an injury like that, I'd have my foot up. I would be like, you know, ringing the bell for people to come bring me things. And I would be really working that injury. She was like, well, I've got nothing else to do but sew. And sew things for my retreat. So that's why we all got a little doll quilt. And then this. And she finds patterns of really cool things. And this is an eyeglass holder. And I don't know the company, but my mom says she was familiar. She's seen this pattern. But it's almost like it's got like a heart-shaped wing on it. And then that folds over and snaps. Isn't that clever? And she gave us a magnifying glass. And I think these are so cute. It reminds me, of course, of our Sunbonnet Sue for quilt learning. She's got her little magnifying glass. She's investigating. So I thought that was a really cute nod to us, even though it's not really. Leah did give us a shout out though. I was so excited. I didn't know it was coming. She was going through her presentation on Monday night, and her presentation was about Swatch books, you guys. Oh my God. I totally even forgotten about that. But because Jill and I, for our Book Talk Tuesdays, if you guys remember, if you were around, we did the Dress Diary, which was about one woman's dress swatches book that she kept from like the 1840s through, I can't remember, it was like the 1870s, 1880s. It was over a long period of time. Anyway, she mentioned the book, and then she pulled up our information and said, you know, Jill and Stephanie are doing this thing, and Stephanie's here. And so, of course, people asked me, and that was exciting. So hopefully got a few more followers. A few more people watching. Marie Antoinette kept a swatch book. What? I've never heard that. Do you know where it is, Quiltish? Is it like in France or something? Maybe it's some place where people can visit and see it. So we also get some fabric, and this one is really fun. Hopefully you can see this. It is reproductions of a stamp, a postage stamp that says 50th anniversary of women's suffrage. So that would be like 1975. This stamp been issued and somebody made fabric out of it. So that's cool. Women's suffrage. Additionally, I have to give a humongous shout out to So Treasured, the quilt shop that is in Murrieta, which is just sort of like the next little town over from Temecula. Drew, the quilt shop owner there, is fantastic. She is so cool. Most of her shop is a lot of reproduction fabrics. So you've got like the whole range of like the 1930s, those adorable little prints that have, you know, the little kid stuff or the bright and happy florals and things. And then she has all of the 1860s and 1880s reproduction fabrics. So anyway, she came and gave this gift, 3 fat quarters and her little ruler that has So Treasured on it. So if you are out in Southern California at any point, or you live out there and you've never been there, check out So Treasured, Murrieta. I think it's Murrietta or Murr. Murrieta. Yeah, you'll find it if you Google it. So if you go by there, tell Drew that I sent you. So that's fun. And let's see what else. The other fun thing that Leah does is, because she does obviously all of this kind of sewing for her retreat and, you know, these things, she ends up with lots of scraps, and she is so generous. Thank you, Robin. Murrieta, California. Yep. It might be at Versailles. That makes sense. Possibly at Versailles. If it didn't get I would assume that we wouldn't know about it if it was destroyed during the French Revolution, so it must be someplace safe. Anyway, so Leah has all her scraps, and she basically pulls out a big bin, and everybody gets to like just pillage her scraps. And I don't have a whole lot of these kind of reproduction type scraps because, you know, they're usually just not the things that I work with. So I thought it'd be fun to grab a few for some things that I'm doing. And yeah, so just a handful of variety here. And then I think, let's see, this one, no, I thought one of these might have been an antique scrap, but I don't think it is. So, look at this nice big piece of stripe. Oh, I love a stripe. Stripes are so good. Other people's scraps are the best, right? Now, what else? Okay, guys. So there is this antique shop, and I bought a few things there last year. It's not far. It's called Granny's Attic. And it's one of those antique mall type things where, you know, there's everybody, you know, all of the dealers have little booths. And it's different, I would say, than the East Coast antique shops that are like that. They just have different stuff because there's different stuff out in California than there is here on the East Coast. Not to say you won't find some of the same stuff, but I feel like, when it comes to quilts and things, they have a lot more quilts, say, from the 20th century, so like 1930s type stuff. 1950s, lots of like kind of cute retro type things. They've got lots of used clothing, so like vintage clothing, booths, and just a little bit, I guess newer, I guess is what I would say. Like here on the East Coast, you'll see things from, ancient furniture, things like that. And California seems to have a little bit more of the, later 1800s, early 20th century when you're talking about antiques. We were getting ready to leave. My mom had bought one small thing that she was looking at, and I picked up a couple of issues of Modern Priscilla, and I was like, this is all the budget can sustain. Well, as I was getting ready to leave, I found this, and it is a sewing bag, and one of the handles is ripped. It came apart. A little bit of cotton dry rot. But this little bag, is this not the cutest little thing you have ever seen? So Quilter says it's shown on A Stitch in Time on Prime on the Marie Antoinette episode. Okay. I'll have to check that out. But look at this. And at first I thought, is it maybe somebody has made something out of an old quilt? But I don't think so. I think that this is legitimately, was made at some point in the early 20th century. I'm terrible with dates, but I'm going to say based on these fabrics, these really cute florals, and the fact that it is kind of faded and it's got some damage, probably made in the 30s or 40s. So it's got this cute little star on the top. And then, it's lined with a variety of fabrics. This opening, I think, from what I can feel, is a crochet hoop. Or not crochet hoop. An embroidery hoop. So just the solid part, not the one that's got the thumb screw, but the solid one that goes on the inside. And I think what they did was they gathered this so it was as big, and then folded it over and then whip stitched it. Because there's no opening to feed that through. They had to sew it over the hoop, and then it had some stuff in it. So some of our fun needle book that we love that one, and this fun little tomato, but it's got like a little metal thing for going on your wrist. And then some crocheted edge lace. So I'm guessing this was probably for a pillowcase, because that was really popular in the early 20th century, was making crocheted edging for things like dresser scarves and pillowcases and hand towels and stuff like that. So, but the length of these is pillowcase length. So I bet you anything that's what these were for the edge of pillowcases. And then this one, I'm not sure. This could have been, it's a little bit heavy in my opinion for a pillowcase, but that's what it could be. There's two of them. So I suspect that's what those are. So, but very, very beautiful work. Somebody that was pretty handy with the crochet hook. So that was my little treasure, and it was an affordable little treasure. Again, because it's not in super condition, but so cute. And would this make just the most adorable pattern? I was thinking I could probably pattern it, and then you could make it out of whatever your favorite fabric, or do a little patchwork deal like this. So I was so proud of it. It's just such a little treasure. So I think that's kind of the big stuff I wanted to show you. And I've got a couple pictures, and they're probably not too different from last year. What I have pictures of Temecula. Let me pull those up so we can see. I have a whole bunch of pictures here. Okay, this one I think is Temecula. Let me share my other screen. So these pictures, oh, come on now. These pictures do not do justice, in my opinion. So this is from the edge of the property where the retreat center is. And I think I probably took this exact same picture last year. But like this is, this is Temecula Valley. And we are right off of a road called De Portola Road, which runs straight through the center of Temecula Valley. And on both sides of it, like for its entire length, that goes on for miles, its entire length are vineyards and wineries. I did see one olive orchard, but everything else, I mean, it's just like winery, and they all have all have a restaurant. It's like the place to be. And I actually went to lunch at one of the wineries on Thursday when my mom and I checked out of the retreat, because my husband's cousin lives right there in Temecula, and he and his wife met up with us at one of the wineries where they belong. And I don't know what it means to belong to a winery. I thought it was kind of none of my business, because I knew I would get into things like, well, how much does it cost? So I just kind of left it like, oh, you belong to this winery, you must get great perks. I know one of the things is I think they get like discounts in the restaurant. So they paid for our lunch, and I think that's probably a nice perk if you belong to a thing and you get some discount. So anyway, this is what you're seeing. Like you are see this here. Hopefully you can see the little hand. These are grapes. And then, I mean, you can see like the trucks and stuff, the agricultural workers that are out there. I saw a man on a horse that kind of came through here. I don't know where he was going or what he was doing. They have signs up on the roads that say horse crossing. So I suspect people that have horses in this area maybe ride them to and fro. Just because this is kind of a little hilly, and maybe it's a little bit easier to get around these ranch spaces on a horse, I guess. Here in the background you can see the mountains, and I think this is part of the Sierra Nevada range. You westernly people, let me know if I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's what this is. And you can see some of these houses and things that are tucked in here. I think some of them are probably ranch houses that are part of this area, because I think these were ranches before they were vineyards. I don't think that this area has been sporting grapes forever. I think that this is maybe a newer development in this area. But I mean, has also been here a while, I think. So when you hear people talk about California wine country, you probably immediately think of Napa Valley, which is in Northern California. And I think Napa Valley has maybe more of the climate and soil, etc., as you might find in parts of France, I think. But Temecula is probably more like Tuscany. So you've got this sort of Mediterranean type of soil and climate, which the grapes and the olives like. Because they're about 45 minutes from the water, from the Pacific Ocean, they get the rains and humidity and things from the ocean that, would be similar to what happens in the Mediterranean. So that is Temecula. I don't drink wine, so I had no wine when I was there, although wine o'clock is pretty popular. So you can see the cypress trees and just all the stuff. This is really kind of a picture from the same direction. The lawn people are doing my neighbor's lawn, so I hope that isn't too noisy. Oh, this is some sort of little saint, maybe. There's a lot of religious iconography at the retreat center because it is a Catholic retreat center. It houses a convent for elderly retired nuns, and I know there was at least one nun there because the cafeteria where we eat is connected to the convent. And I did see would look like maybe a certified nursing assistant taking food from the cafeteria to the the convalescent center. So there was at least one on there, but I suspect there's a few. Ah, okay. So not the Sierras. Okay, the Sierras are farther north, right? Like Sierras are like Turkey and etc., right? So it's the San Jacinto Mountains and the Santa Ana Mountains are to the west. Okay, thank you, Robin. I'm terrible with geography. You guys know. Like, it's the Alps. It's got to be the Alps, right? No. So San Jacinto Mountains and the Santa Anas. Okay, and that makes sense. I mean, this is Southern California, so yeah, I'm in my mind. I'm picturing like the Sierra Nevadas are like up there and go into. And I mean, I know Robin knows this because she's in Nevada. So the Sierra Nevadas go there through California and into Nevada. Also a lovely place. And oh yes, I found there's many snails there. I found an empty snail shell and there's some kind of little thing. So I'm an East Coaster. Yes. Okay. Fair enough. So my West Coasters know little to nothing about the East Coast, and so we can always school you, and you can school me. All right. Yes, there are snails everywhere down there in Southern California. Especially there in Temecula. They especially one morning it was kind of a little foggy, and it was kind of damp, and I think it had rained a little bit, and the snails were out everywhere, on climbing, crawling everywhere. I didn't see any slugs, no banana slugs down there that I saw, though who knows, they could have been there, I don't know. Lizards, oh my gosh, those tiny little lizards. We have something that's kind of similar here on the East Coast. Ours is more of like a smoother lizard. These lizards were a little bit like, they're desert lizards, they're a little scalier, they look like I don't know, like little tiny iguanas or something. Oh, hey, Kate. Snails get killed in your garden. Yeah, I know they eat up stuff. But these little snails, they were doing their little snail thing. So I liked looking at them. I saw a hummingbird. So the hummingbird was in the breezeway in between. So we had like a sewing room and we had a lecture room. And there in the breezeway were I guess the rose bushes. They had like azaleas, I guess, rhododendrons, that kind of thing, and just other kinds of, I guess, local wildflowers and things were planted. And they have little fountains and things. I think at one time this was really meant to be good grief. It literally sounds like they're weed eating in my living room. I think at one time this retreat center was a lot more, it was very much a religious retreat center. So, people might go there and ponder and pray and meditate and all that kind of stuff. I think that there's probably a lot less Catholic retreating going on. The Southern California Quilt Guilds pretty much rule the roost at this place. They have weekends rented out like extensively for their retreats and things. So if you belong to or want to belong to a Southern California Quilt Guild, if you're out there, it's a very good chance that they're doing some kind of retreat thing at this center. So let's see what else. All right. So my next destination after I left Temecula was to go back to San Diego, and I booked my mom and I on a red eye on Friday night so that during the day on Friday I could go to the Mingei. And the Mingei has their museum in San Diego. They have over 300 quilts that were in the collection of a woman named Pat Nichols, and I think Pat is from Northern California. And Leah, who put on the retreat, Leah Zieber, worked with that collection for a very long time. And Pat gifted this big chunk to the Mingei, and I was hoping that they would have at least some of her quilts kind of in a permanent collection area. Here's the thing about the Mingei. I didn't know. They have their upstairs on the second floors where they have their exhibits, like the current exhibits. And then downstairs they have kind of, I guess, like the permanent collection things that are on display. It's a very small amount of stuff. I took some pictures of a few things, which I will show you. There was one Pat Nichols quilt. I was like, oh. And honestly, knowing the other quilts that they have in their collection, because you can see them online, you can page through their collection online. It's a lovely quilt, and I will show it to you, but it is not the quilt I would have picked. So anyway, I was kind of disappointed, but the shows were very cool. I was a little disappointed in the gift shop. You guys know I love a museum gift shop. They didn't have t-shirts. They didn't have, they had some t-shirts, but they were very specific. They weren't like the Mingei. They didn't have any of the little Pel pins. They didn't have any patches. They didn't have any stickers. You know, the things that I pick up when I go visit museums, I will always have a few bucks for a pin, a patch, a sticker, that kind of thing. They had a lot of spoons. And you will know why in a moment. They had a very interesting exhibit. They had things like, the fancy jewelry and fancy textiles and things like that. And it was lovely things, but it just wasn't the fun, affordable things that one likes to purchase at a museum. So anyway, I was a little bummed. But their exhibits were so very interesting. Their library was also up there on the second floor, and it's got a complete glass windows. So from the galleries, you could see right into the library. It was really neat. And I think a lot of times people don't get to see the library/archives of museums. Theirs is very small, but I thought I could show you so you might know what that looks like. So let us first just look at some general Mingei things. And then I'll show you one of the 3 exhibits that I photographed. I double checked with them. I said, you guys have, a policy? And they were like, no flash. And I was like, that's it? Yes, indeedy. That is it. So I photographed lots and lots of stuff. All right. So let us start. Robin, yes, a fence lizard. I believe that is what they told me it was. Yeah. They were sunning themselves on the curbs, and you'd walk by and you wouldn't even see it because it kind of blends in. And then you'll just see this movement where it darts back into they had succulents kind of as ground cover. Here on the East Coast, it would ordinarily be ivy. A lot of ground cover is ivy, but out west it's little succulents. And I don't know what they are, but they look like little beads that are on a vine or something. Anyway, very cool stuff. All right, so let's move over to the other screen so I can show you. So this fine gentleman was, maybe ice plant. I don't, I'm really not very knowledgeable about stuff like that. I've mentioned maybe a few times I have a brown thumb. I am lucky that I kept my child alive while he was growing up, much less. Could I keep a plant alive? So I don't know much about plants. Plants and geography. Cake doesn't know. All right, so this is right in the entrance of the Mingei. And I love mosaic, so I took a picture of this. It is called The Poet and His Muse by Nikki de Saint Phalle. Now, you might remember Nikki from, if you watched Taking Venice. Nikki de Saint Phalle was one of the people that was contemporary to Robert Rauschenberg. And she did just interesting stuff. She did all kinds of things, experimental, kinetic artwork. This is a sculpture, and it's got kind of the look of much of her work, but it's a totally different medium. Just it's a different thing. So her artwork was a very broad. So interesting that I learned about her not long ago and ran into her sculpture here. This was from 1998. It consists of polyester, ceramic tiles, glass, mirror, and stones. So, and I mean, you can obviously see you've got, the ceramic tiles. All of this is mirror in here. And then you've got stones down here. So very interesting thing. And Nikki de St. Paul is, let's see, her birth and death dates 1930 to 2002. Okay, so skip that. So this is the museum library. And I don't know if you'll be able to spot it because I maybe didn't take the greatest picture, but right here is a book on quilts. I have this particular book. It's one of those like very ubiquitous coffee table quilt books that I think was very popular maybe in the 90s. It's a big coffee table quilt book and like everybody had it. So you too might have it. But what you can see in here, first of all, these stacks are huge. And also very interesting is they had this, there's like a big window here, and that really kind of surprised me. Usually libraries don't have like a whole lot of light streaming in on books because, you know, much like textiles, books can suffer. So I don't know. I couldn't really tell very well that, I mean, I think it's got a window covering or something, but I don't know. That was interesting. But over here you can see they have like banker's boxes. So some of this is like archive like material. And then just all the books. And you can go in there. I think you can probably make an appointment to do research in there, but I think you can also just go in there and peruse the books and, you know, look something up. It's a very, very pretty modern museum. And they actually had some work going on there that I don't know exactly what it is they were doing, but it doesn't strike me as a particularly like the inside is all very new. The outside, of course, of all of these buildings that are in this area are circa 1915. And here's the interesting thing about the Mingei. As many times as I have been to San Diego, Southern California, I've never had a chance to do like the touristy thing. And so this was the first time I'd been to what they call the museum district, and it's by the zoo, you know, the San Diego Zoo. And then you have like all these museums. Well, I've heard the names of these things before. There's the Museum of Us. There's the Mingei. There's another one, and then there's the zoo, the San Diego Zoo. All of this stuff is all together. Well, what's really interesting about where the Mingei is, let's see, this was some of the, oh, whoops. We'll come back to this stuff. Oh, my mom. So where the Mingei sits is circa 1915. It was part of the Panama, California Exposition. And you may have heard of Balboa Park. That's what this area is. This building right here, and I haven't had a chance to like look at all of the like the little placards and stuff. I'll read one of them to you, but it's a cathedral or a church of some kind at some point, but it is now the Museum of Us. And this tower right here is Carillon that chimed nonstop. So I guess it chimes on the hour and the half hour, I think. Because we were there for a couple hours. We sat and had a little nibble on our things that we had with us in this garden area. And then, of course, we spent all the time inside. So it rang a lot. And it's that, oh, I can't remember what it's. Doon, 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 doon. This little walkway here goes down, and then there's a restaurant down here. On the other side of this is a road, and across the road there's a playhouse called the Old Globe. So it's this very like cultural area down here. This is called Alcazar Garden, where we were sitting. There's also a Japanese garden on the other side that I did not get a chance to go to. We were just like really compressed for time at that point. You know, I really wanted to see the inside of the museum. So Alcazar Garden, and I'll read this to you because it's really interesting. Was originally designed in the formal Spanish style. This sheltered retreat was created as Montezuma Garden for the 1915 Panama, California Exposition. Seclusion was enhanced by a leafy eucalyptus forest behind the south walls. A step into this enclosed garden removed visitors from the bustle of the fair. So you imagine, like, these kinds of fairs, these expositions were so big in the 1800s and early 20th century. So these would be attracting like just thousands upon thousands of people. Walkways divided the space into smaller flower beds than are seen today, and the garden was encircled by ornate street lamps. The Greek-inspired Doric pergola, and we will... Oh, hey, Marianne! Yay! Oh, you are so welcome. It is so good to see you. Yay! So walkways. So the Greek-inspired Doric pergola, which I also took a picture of, dates from 1915 and was designed by Frank P. Allen Jr., director of works for the exposition. As now, there were colorful and changing displays of flowering plants. So what was happening in this garden? I mean, there were people out there eating lunch, obviously, like from probably employees of the museums came down there to sit and eat their lunch, because it was just a beautiful sunny day and a little overcast, but just a beautiful day. And, a little breezy. It was just, oh my gosh, such perfect weather. So it was revitalized when Balboa Park hosted a second San Diego's World's Fair, 1935 to 1936, California Pacific International Exposition. So then that's when this little garden was like kind of re-architected, I guess. And now it's got this Hispano-Moresque landscape style. So if you think of like Islamic architecture that you would see, say, in Morocco, overlay that with kind of the Hispanic influence, and that's kind of what this little garden was about. So, trying to recover a cushion. Well, I'm glad you're here listening, Marianne. So yeah, that's about the Alcazar Garden. And then the California Quadrangle, I walked down there, and that's the Museum of Us. This is in front of that cathedral-like thing. And so that thing was built also for the Panama, California Exposition. The Plaza de California and its surrounding buildings created a grand entrance to the exposition, announced by the ornate west archway. The California Building and Tower stand at the north, while the exposition's Fine Arts Building and non-denominational St. Francis's Chapel enclose the south side. So it's St. Francis's Chapel. That's what it was called. I did read these, but I really just kind of skimmed them. The state of California commissioned the quadrangle for the exposition as a permanent addition to Balboa Park. The architecture incorporates elements of Spanish colonial revival, Plateresque, Mission, and Churrigueresque styles. I'm probably pronouncing those very incorrectly. California history is told in the rich cast stone ornamentation of the building facade through the representations of missionaries, explorers, kings, and symbols of Spain, Mexico, California, and the United States. So, and I know it's a terrible picture, but it's this right here that they're talking about. You can see there's all of this carving into the concrete on the front of this thing. It's very beautiful, just like encrusted with all of this carving. And then you can see up here, the Carillon is kind of the same way, but it's kind of more Islamic looking because of all the tiles and, this ornate, like, repetitive patterns and things, which were just so beautiful. There is also, you can't see it from the garden, you can only see it from the parking lot, but there is like a big, beautiful dome, like it's covered in like blue. I don't think it's tiles. It's like a blue top on this dome thing. So it's decorated with locally manufactured tiles. The dome design echoes the Church of Santa Prisca in Taxco, Mexico. The Latin inscription at the base of the dome translates as a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey. The California Tower is 208 feet tall and houses a carillon rather than bells. So, and then it gets into 16th century Spain, etc., etc. And it became part of the National Register of Historic Places in 1975. Remember, 1975 is the year before 1976 when the whole country was into the bicentennial. And so I suspect that is why this all became part of the historic register at that point, because, California, it's like California pride in the idea of the bicentennial. I think, and not to digress too much, but sort of in my bicentennial research, I have found that a lot of states and localities kind of did their own, it was a celebration of their own place as part of our country's 200th birthday, if that makes sense. So I think that probably had a lot to do with this joining the historic register at that time. Is, you've got a lot of just history and place enthusiasm, I think, at that time. So here's the front of that chapel, and you could just see all of this stuff. You've got people. So Portola, he must have been, okay, so my Californians, who was Portola? He apparently, De Portola Road is named after him in Temecula, maybe. I don't know. And you've got some saints and stuff. Even though it says that it's non-denominational, it's kind of got some Catholic stuff going on here. So I don't know a whole lot about Catholic saints. But yeah, I think you would agree with me. This is like just, it's just encrusted with stuff. So pretty cool. This was just another picture of it. There was a lot of people down there, you guys. I was really surprised when I got to the Mingei. I was like, oh, so the Mingei is like right in the middle of Balboa Park where there's lots of people. So this was a little fountain that we sat under. The fountain, they didn't have the fountain on. I would assume it's just not warm enough yet, that they don't have it on. But then they had these gorgeous little tiled benches that you could sit on. And my mom asked me to take better pictures of them than she did. Because she's like, oh, that would be really neat. Like, in as you're thinking about quilt designs. And yeah, tiles are interesting, reference for quilt designs. And so in this little space that we were sitting, let me go back and explain. So this little space we were sitting, there were four. I'm sitting on one bench, and then there's two benches on either side, and then the one straight ahead. So the benches across from each other were the same tiles. So the bench I was sitting on at this bench had the same tiles, and then the two benches that were on either side had the same tiles. So they all ended up having these different tiles. Okay, so here I am standing in front of the Mingei looking into this garden, and sorry to this poor woman, but I got a picture of, and my mother. This is the pergola that they were talking about, and it's got all these beautiful vines, and you can see like there's all of this other flora around that they have planted in these flower beds. It was very cool. This little group here celebrating an engagement. So I chose not to bust into their moment because they were doing all this photography down here with all the beautiful flowers and things in the background. So I was kind of like, well, I can always come back here. They only have their engagement once. So, Robin's got some details. Okay, let's see what she says. Oh, crud. Okay, so Robin says, Gaspar de Portola was a Spanish explorer and military officer who served as the first governor of the Californias, both Baja and Alta California, from 1767 to 1770. He is best known for leading the Portola expedition, which explored California and laid the groundwork for Spanish settlement in the region. This expedition, which also included Father Junipero Serra, played a crucial role in establishing missions and expanding Spanish influence in California. Robin had to use Google to confirm. Thank you. Thank you very much. You told me more about this than I learned while I was there. So, but anyway, I think they had just weeded out and replanted these areas because those plants were very small. And I suspect that's just the season we're in. So this stuff I think ends up being more like flowers like this. You can see a little bit there. But all of this other stuff is just really, really stunning. There's a little bit better picture of standing there with my mom to see this. And you can see the 4 little seats. So this is just looking down into the park. There was a fence that separated this, but you could look down into the park and you can see the trails here. And then you can just see all of the different, flora and fauna down here. And you're kind of up on a hill there where the Mingei is and where Balboa, I guess the top part of the Balboa Park is. So yeah, these are, I realize how garbagey looking these pictures are because I'm like holding my arm up above a fence. But I thought it was interesting to see because you can see all the palm trees and the different, I think there's eucalyptus down there. And this was a little, one of the little arches that you entered into Alcazar Garden. There was another one further down. And I thought I've seen this kind of tree before. I think it's called like a trumpet tree or something like that. But we don't have this on the East Coast. So I thought it was cool to look at. So if you guys know what the actual name of this thing is, I feel like it's trumpet something. It's very cool looking. We don't have things like that. And that was the last one. So that is the Mingei in general. Now, let me get my files for Into the Spooniverse. So the Mingei, I suspect the curator across the Spooniverse, I'm sorry. I would assume that the curators, they have a little bit of a sense of humor. So, Angel's Trumpets. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I know that it's got trumpet of some sort in the title. Okay. So, across the Spooniverse. This is about spoons. And this was, I thought to myself, I know this is going to be interesting. 'Cause spoons, right? All right, I want to read this to you guys because I have not read this myself. So I'm going to read this to you. So this is the big wall where they had the statement about the show, the exhibit. So, and it's just this side that I'm going to read you. This side is in Spanish. So they had all of their placards and things were bilingual. So, around the world, spoons are essential implements that help us scoop, stir, mash, skim, cook, and eat. Some spoons come straight from nature, a gourd cut in half with its own built-in handle, for example, a folded leaf, or a curved seashell. Others are carved of wood, bone, or horn, and some are made of fired clay or hammered or cast material. Because of their role in the preparation and serving of food and drink, spoons are often cultural symbols of abundance and generosity. Sometimes the act of stirring, serving, or ladling is spiritually sacred. These spoons could bear visual references to the concept of blessing or a connection to the divine source of nourishment. Contemporary spoon designs include an array of forms and materials, ranging from cast resin to mass-produced flatware, hand-adorned with beads or precious stones. This exhibit presents over 100 spoons from across the globe, including examples from Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas. Some are adorned with exquisite carvings of human and animal figures, and others are brilliant for their simplicity of form. Some show decades or even centuries of wear and use, and others are pristine. As objects of use, spoons are universally understood. Each object is a reflection of a specific cultural context, from intimate traditions of home and family to community and celebratory preparations of food and drink, and the spiritual gestures of giving thanks for sustenance. The design of each spoon reflects the work of the maker, a person often unknown to us, whose creativity inspires a sense of wonder. This exhibition was made possible through generous support from Susan and Richard Ulovich. So I have to say that, you know, I think most people who are not nerdy like us would hear spoons and go like, why on earth would you want to look at spoons? But from a material culture perspective, spoons are really interesting, you guys. Like, the way that spoons are used in different cultures, um, you know, things, how people make do, in antiquity or in certain cultures to make a spoon, for different uses. It's just so interesting. There's a lot of African spoons. There was an entire wall of carved stuff, and I got pictures of a lot of it. Um, I didn't want to be in the way of other people, and other people were in the way of me. So, you know how that is sometimes when you're trying to take pictures. But these are women. Let's see. This is when Curly with her spoon during a public performance. Does it have a date? 1974 to 1975. So this was photographed by Hans Himmelhuber during his 13th journey to a village in Liberia. So there was quite a few vessels and some of these, they call them spoons. I probably, not knowing any better, would have just called them vessels or ladles or scoops, because some of these things are quite large. But I think this must be some type of ceremonial activity that these women are partaking in. And I think there's at least one man back here. And some of these, it explains as much as it explains, which is sometimes not a lot. So these are interesting. You've got these vessel type things, and this is really, really big. This is kind of like a ladle, and just a variety of different things. These right here, I think I took a better picture of. Yeah. So check these out. These, you can see what these are made of. They're made from the coil of a shell, and they are caviar spoons. And then this up here is, it's a shell with this like ivory or bone piece just bolted onto it. This is another thing, another shell that has like a piece, and I think it's got a hole drilled in it, and it's got this piece made onto it. So it's really interesting, again, like the ingenuity of, you need a thing to scoop, and so there's all these different ways of making it outside of the kind of like the flatware we're used to, plastic flatware, or your stainless steel flatware. There's a lot more ways of making a spoon than just this. So I do have the labels so up here at the top, these are palm wine dippers from, let's see, the Sanufo people. So this would be from the Ivory Coast. So they are made out of gourds and wood. The handles are wood, and the bowl of the dipper is a gourd. Then you have this enormous ladle. This thing was probably like as long as my leg. It was huge. And this is from Burkina Faso, the Bois people. And what they say about this is gourd is a hard-shelled fruit from the cucumber family that grows on a vine. The natural shape of a gourd lends itself to many utilitarian objects. After the seeds and flesh are scraped out, gourds dry and harden and can be made into bowls, cups, and spoons of all kinds. This ladle was made when a gourd was split into two. The scrape marks are still visible on the inside. So that would be in here. So this thing is a water dipper, and it is from Japan, 1950s, and it is made of bamboo. And so this is literally like a piece of bamboo that has been cut, and it's fitted with this stick, and I don't know the bottom. So I know bamboo has kind of divisions in it itself. So I don't know if that automatically creates like a bottom, or if they have to embellish that or add more to it. But what it also says is that bamboo swells when it's soaked with water, so it forms an airtight seal or watertight seal between all the parts. And this is all fitted together without any type of fastenings or glue, which I thought was pretty cool. We've got some coconut shell stuff here. More scoops. This right here is a coca implement from Colombia. It is carved to look like a shell, but it is made of red jasper stone. And let me see if I have, yeah. So what it says is it's from the ancient Tarona culture of Colombia. It's made of red jasper type of stone. It emulates the shape of a seashell, possibly signaling symbolic or monetary value of shells. The relationship of the coastal Tarona people to the sea, or the importance of shells in the making of lime powder. The bowl at one end of the spoon was used to hold lime powder made of crushed and burned seashells. Tarona people use this as a stimulant made from chewed coca leaves mixed with lime powder. So yes, cocaine. But we're talking about this would be pre-Columbian peoples. We're talking 1,000 to 1,500 CE, Common Era. So this is just before the Spanish came, is my assumption about this. So this is something that would be before the Spanish came into South America. These are just spoons. This is a Japanese spoon, and this is an unidentified culture from Peru that made this spoon. And then we've got the caviar spoons, and these are from the 20th century of unknown origin, but it is specifically made out of shell or caviar spoons are made out of shell because metal is thought to alter the taste of the fish roe. So look at these gorgeous things. So on the left, on the left, these are carved spoons made by Romani artisans. So meaning Romania. And they're just all carved, and they are carved by, this first one was carved in 1977 by a person named George Rotunjanu. So this is a creator. That's the creator's name. These other ones are also from the Romani culture, but they do not have a maker, but they're all from the 70s. So a lot of the things there are modern items. We're not talking about things that are terribly old, but they're really wonderful examples of these cultures. So these over here on the right are from Russia, and I think unidentified maker on all of these. But these, and so you can see here the picture, these are actually percussion instruments. They are not actually for eating with. So these say playing spoons called lozki are percussion instruments in traditional Russian folk music. People who play the spoons are known as lozkari. I know I'm pronouncing all of this stuff wrong. I'm so sorry. Multiple spoons are held in one hand with the handles threaded between the fingers. The bowls of the spoons make a clacking sound when struck together, while a spoon held in the opposite hand can strike the other spoons. Although latke originated from plain wooden cooking spoons, contemporary latke are made of a harder wood than kitchen spoons and are painted, which increases the volume of percussive sound. So aren't they lovely? They're like painted with gold paint, and then these beautiful like sort of lacquered. This is, I think, this style is very indicative of like Eastern Europe and Russian, like imagery, iconography. Look at these things. All of these little silver spoons. And let's see. Oh gosh, did I not get... let's see. Oh no, did I not get the spoon information here? Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Bear with me. Yeah, I think I missed getting this. I think I did not take a picture of the correct. Yeah. Bad Stephanie. Bad Stephanie. I didn't take a picture of the correct thing on these. So, from what I can remember, these are from all different cultures. This spoon I know is a children's feeding spoon, and it's got a little cactus motif here. So I want to say that this is from either Central or South America, and fairly contemporary. And you can see the little loop there. I don't know why baby spoons have that little loop. I don't know. You guys, okay. I've missed your comments. So Robin says spoons are quite versatile, especially in different cultures. Yes, absolutely. And like I said, you know what we saw. We've already seen percussion spoons. You know, we've seen these giant ladles. We've seen little tiny things. These right here are ear spoons. And I believe from India. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically you literally use it to like scoop and scrape your earwax out. This was what people used before Q-tips. And you'll even find this in the United States. You'll see ear spoons on chatelaines and things from the 1800s. Ladies, like vanity sets, may have had ear spoons. Not as ubiquitous as, say, in like Indian culture. Definitely the ear spoon is a thing. So Kate said those look like salt spoons. Yes, I think some of what I got were salt spoons, little tiny things. And did I see any snuff spoons? As a matter of fact, I did. And hopefully I have that picture as I skipped forward. These right here are spoons that have a straw. So they are used literally for... Oh, yeah. So these spoons were like for drinking your mint julep. You know, you'd stir, you can muddle with the spoon, and then you'd have the straw to drink the cocktail. And then all of these other ones, I am drawing a blank on what they are. There is some silver stuff there, not just in this exhibition, but also in their permanent collection downstairs. They had some silver vessels and things that were made by this man, who, I can't remember, he came, I think, from Eastern Europe or Germany. He came to the U.S. and he basically set himself up as a silversmith and made a lot of silver flatware and vessels and all that kind of thing. So yes, Jill said they used the ear spoons for waxing their thread. Yes, disgusting. Because the wax that comes out of your ear is not anything like beeswax, even if it's kind of got that same consistency. It's yuck. I mean, the purpose of earwax is for catching stuff that might get in your ears, from getting in there deeper and causing like brain trouble. So earwax is not the pristine substance that, say, beeswax is. Beeswax is great for coating a thread, not the stuff that comes out of your ears. It is disgusting. Okay. I did get some of it. Okay, so there were, a child's feeding spoon. So the designer was... Oh, okay, I'm totally wrong. That was from Denmark. The cactus. So it's a silversmith from Denmark. George Jansen, or Gundorf Albertus, George Jensen's silversmithy. So some of these were teaspoons, ritual medicine spoon, the ear spoons. Okay, I was totally wrong about all of this. I'm glad I got some of it. Ear spoons not from India, they were from Ethiopia. And so some more. Okay, there was a ceremonial spoon from India. That's what I was thinking of. Oh, and that's kind of neat too. Where is it? I think it's this right here. These are the ceremonial spoons from India, and the bowl is made out of a coin. They've taken a coin and they've raised it, and then added these silver handles. And that's really, really cool. Repurposing something. Think of all the DNA that is in any quilt. Oh, check this out, you guys. So because, I have worked with genealogists, genetic genealogists. DNA is their thing. They know a lot about DNA. There are, and any of you who are into true crime, you probably already know this, but there are some modern DNA collection devices that are like way better than anything that we've had in the past. And one of them is essentially this little dust buster. And it squirts it squirts like a sterile water solution onto clothing, any kind of textile, and again, they're using this in law enforcement, and it squirts this sterile solution, and then the little dust buster thing sucks up all of this solution, and it's pulling any kind of DNA. So like any kind of skin cells, hair, like all kinds of like debris that could possibly have DNA in it. And it pulls it into this solution, and then they could take the solution and test it. So it's so fascinating that they can do this. And this is something that's being used today in true crime. Would it not be so freaking cool if it could be used on quilts? Right? You could tell for sure, like, you could figure out, did your great grandmother actually make this quilt? Because you'd be able to tell the DNA on this quilt, did it match your DNA, right? It is extremely expensive technology, and I let some of the quilt study folks that I've seen in the past, some of the regular quilt study people that hold the quilt studies, and I mentioned this to them a while back, and they were all like, oh my god, that would be so cool if we could only like use we could use the DNA off of these quilts. Yeah. Robin could try it after you hit the lottery. Yes, ma'am. That's the first thing you're gonna buy, right? DNA vacuum. Okay, so these again are more. These I think are all like made out of iron. These bowls and scoops. And I just read all that to you. Okay, this ladle is made by this man I was just mentioning. He came to the U.S. I'm trying to see, did I get it in here? So this ladle, no, that's not the same one. Where is it? Ladle. Okay, yeah. So it's made by Henry Patzal, who came from Germany to New Jersey. And he was a refugee from Germany who settled in the U.S. in 1935. He worked in the textile industry as an executive until the age of 50. And as his retirement approached, he took up silversmithing as a hobby, taking classes at the New York City YMCA and Craft Students League. He became one of the most renowned silversmiths in the United States, and his work is in numerous museums and private collections. So this man basically he started his second career as a successful silversmith. And this ladle is enormous. I would say this ladle is probably, you can see a little... You can see a little reflection of me. I would say this ladle is probably 18 inches long. It was pretty big. But very pretty and made out of sterling silver. So this is a contemporary artist who made these. And I took a picture of her thing on the wall. Here she is, Erica Moody. And she says, my current work sculpting servingwares. God, I need new glasses, I think. Servingwares evolved from wanting to create tools that create connection and focused that intersection with the spirituality in sharing food. My utensil designs are inspired by a variety of antique serving styles, traditional metalcraft techniques, as well as minimal design and fabrication learned from my collaboration over the last 30 years with artists, architects, and designers. And so this is her work. And these, to raise the so when you make vessels out of sterling silver or any kind of metal really, but my experience is in sterling silver. And when you raise silver, it's basically you're forging it into, forging is actually a different activity, but to for the layman, you're creating these rounded shapes. It's not easy. You have to repeatedly anneal the metal, which means heating it up to getting it back to a soft point so it's soft, and then you have to keep hammering it and working it, and it work hardens. So imagine if you've ever taken a piece of wire, like a paper clip. Imagine you take a paper clip and you keep bending it like this, and eventually it breaks. What you're doing there is you're work hardening it, so that little point where you're bending it. And so that's kind of what happens to the metal. And so this is something that takes quite a while to get these big, beautiful bowls and these spoons. So yeah, I had my face pressed up against the glass to look at these because, the handles are interesting. She's got these different, ways that she's done the handles, but it's the bowls that were most interesting to me because, I studied that, and it's difficult to get them symmetrical, much like if you've ever thrown clay on a pottery wheel. It's difficult. It takes some arm strength to get this to work. So, Quilter says, my husband's extended family in the Netherlands all had their own personal silver spoon with their name on it. All the same pattern. One of his relatives wrote a book, Family Silver. Oh, that is so cool. How interesting. So it was I'm guessing it was the family flatware. So it had a pattern, but they got their name engraved on it, I'm guessing. That's pretty neat. Okay. So that was Erica Moody. So these were cool. Now this is interesting. And I did read the little blurb about this. Let me skip forward so I can read it to you. Okay. So these are both sets of these are wedding spoons. And what's interesting though is this right here is from the Songa culture, late 19th to early 20th century, South Africa. And they are made of wood, although when I first looked at it, I could have sworn that these were metal. They look like rusty metal. So I don't know what kind of wood it is. Now, the one up here, and I think I have another picture that shows this better, those are from Norway. And what they say, they don't have any specifics about this other than the fact that it's from South Africa and it's made of wood. But the wedding spoons here, and they're both wedding spoons, up here from Norway, this is what they say. These were made about 1990, so this is contemporary. Wedding spoons have been a European tradition since at least the mid-1600s. The earliest known wedding spoons came from Germany and Wales, while the Norwegian tradition dates to the 1800s. Two hand-carved spoons joined by a chain were often given as a gift to an intended bride by her future husband. The spoons are used by a newlywed couple to share their first meal. Following the wedding, the spoons are hung in the kitchen of the home. And I think, I'm not positive, but I think I have seen a thing about wedding spoons before, and I think they are carved out of one piece of wood. So I hopefully have the next picture. Yeah. So you can see it's a spoon and it has, it's had this little thing carved, and then you've got these links and they're wooden. It's all wooden. And so it's a piece of wood and the spoons are carved out of the ends, and then that whole center section is carved out into links. And so, there's no opening. These are just, they're carved that way. And I thought it was so interesting that you've got this modern one from Norway, and then you have this early 20th century, late 19th century one from South Africa. Now, South Africa has the Dutch influence. You've got the Boer War and the Dutch that came down and colonial impact of South Africa. So I don't know if, being from South Africa, that this might have some connection to Europe, because, you've got Europe colonialism there in South Africa. Or, this is a tradition because it was such a long time in Europe that it made its way down into Africa some other way. I don't know. This is all conjecture. They didn't explain this very well. So, one can only be left to guess. But I thought it was so fascinating that to see these two exactly the same purpose in two very different parts of the world. Here's those snuff spoons. So let's see what I can tell you about the snuff spoons. There was actually a lot more in this case. So these are the snuff spoons. These are unidentified makers, but 20th century. And it says they're of the Zulu people, and they're from South Africa. So it says, among the Zulu and Xhosa people of South Africa's Eastern Cape, snuff taking was both a daily ritual and a gesture of fellowship. Delicately carved bone spoons, often adorned with incised patterns or beads, served as both snuff dispensers and hair ornaments. So you could see how easily this long, these long pieces could be threaded through hair. If you have an elaborate hairdo, or even, just bundled up on top of your head, how that could be put in there. Maybe even, I don't know. I've used chopsticks and pencils and things to twirl my hair and, jam it in there and kind of keep it up there. So I would imagine that these could probably be used similarly, and, put in your hair, and which I think is so cool. Two birds, one stone. You've got a hair ornament, you got a snuff spoon. But I thought these were really neat. You can see that these little patterns that are carved in, and then this one has got this little top knot of beaded, tassel kind of thing up at the top. So very interesting, very cool. And they're small. The bowl of the spoon is very tiny, like a teaspoon. But then the stem of the spoon is very long. Okay. A lot more stuff down here now. I think, let's see, this is carved bone. This is, I'm not sure what that is carved out of. This is carved out of horn or shell. So let me go through and tell you what these are. So this is interesting, this one. Let me find it. So this is unidentified maker, probably indigenous Lower Columbia Gorge people, late 19th century, United States, possibly Oregon or Washington State. That's where the Columbia River Gorge is. It is made out of horn of the bighorn sheep, and this is a fairly large object. I would say it's probably, the bowl of it is probably as big as my hands together. So you can only imagine how large the horns of a bighorn sheep actually are, that you could get something about that size out of it. So, and you also notice that there's these metal pieces in here. So let me tell you about that. So this is made of horn and copper percussion caps. Spoons made from horns of the bighorn sheep were made for centuries by indigenous groups of the western United States and Canada. The horn was separated from the inner core of bone and boiled until it was pliable enough to shape. The copper percussion caps inlaid in the spoon are part of a firing mechanism used to spark and ignite gunpowder in a firearm. So isn't that interesting? So yeah, I guess the horn was maybe cut and kind of unrolled or flattened out. So I guess this is maybe the covering, of the horns that it was flattened out. I don't know. I've never worked extensively with horn. So Very interesting. But that they had used these firing caps as a, you know, to make it decorative, I guess. Oh, Quiltish is currently appliquing a bighorn sheep for a guild challenge. Very cool. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have here? This is a spoon of the Haida people, possibly 19th century Canada, also horn. But this was like a dark colored horn. So whatever type of animal it was from. Let's see. This one, if I'm looking correctly, let's see, top left. I think that this is the Sami culture, which is Lapland, Norway. And it is carved antler horn. And I think it's upside down, but I think what you can see here is a reindeer. And it's got this like really big horn, you know, it's antlers. So, you know, again, antler. And it's kind of cool that the very animal that the spoon was made of is depicted in the bowl of the spoon. This spoon is mid-20th century Indonesia. It is buffalo horn, feathers, twine, and beads. So this is very pretty. You could see this like really pretty intricate stuff carved in here. Buffalo. And I'm guessing it's water buffalo in Indonesia. It's not like the bison / buffalo you see here in the US and Canada. And then these are, I think, let's see. Guess what? These are not horn or shell as I thought. They are actually acrylic. And this is an egg spoon, and the tiny one is a salt spoon. And this says, Heim Sone is a German-owned company. I'm, again, probably pronouncing this very wrong. That was founded in 1862 as a comb maker. I did notice that when I was taking pictures. By 1900, it was the largest manufacturer of tortoiseshell wares in Europe. The international trade of tortoiseshell was banned in 1973 to protect hawksbill turtles, which were hunted almost to extinction due to the demand for their shells. These acrylic spoons mimic the luminous colors of tortoiseshell, hearkening to the company's origins. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, the little salt spoon was probably a few inches long. I'd say it was maybe like 3 inches long. And let's see, what is next? I get more. Yeah, this one I thought was also very interesting. This is horn. And this is late 19th to early 20th century. Again, probably Haida. How do you guys, I'm probably pronouncing it very wrong. It's Haida. Is it Haida or Haida? Again, indigenous group. And then this one here is a smaller spoon, also horn, and it is possibly Sioux. And they say many indigenous groups of the plains made and used horn spoons. So it is not clear which group made this spoon, and it's specifically this one. The cultural liaison of the Oglala Sioux tribe has been consulted prior to the exhibition of this object, and Mingei International Museum will remain in consultation with the Oglala and other federally recognized Sioux tribal nations to research the spoon and its original use. Some horn spoons are used in relationship to food, and others are used in the context of traditional medicine. So the indigenous peoples were also... Okay, so Quilter says it's Haida. Okay, thank you. Haida. And that was just another picture of the whole group there. And you could see how they had these things separated into different traditional... You know, the indigenous were in one group. Okay, these things were huge. And so you've got, this is like a cow or some type of bovine with horns. And then this looks like a ram. And let's see, hopefully I did take the picture of, yeah. So these are called dance ladles. And this is what the woman in that very first picture that I showed you from Liberia, and she was holding like a ladle. That's what these are. And all it says is unidentified maker. This is the Dan or Dan people, Dan. Ivory Coast or Liberia. They're made of wood, and they are used in a type of traditional dance. That's all that they provided as information. So it's kind of a bummer sometimes when I guess the museum doesn't have enough info, maybe. And so they provide what they can. Okay. Now this was a fun one. These are all African, I believe, all African spoons. And this section has all animals carved into the handles of the spoons. And so I tried to take some decent pictures. So this is the whole set of them. And then you can see the different animals. So this little guy appears to be on top of yet another animal. Maybe this is like a mask or something. I'm not sure, but I don't know what this little guy is. Let's see if I can look at my... All right. So this is... Some of these are just say... they just say spoon with animal. So I think this one is... This is another Ivory Coast spoon. No, I'm sorry. Wrong one. Sorry. Where is it? Yeah. Let me go back and look. Where did this one appear? I think it's this right. No, that's a monkey, I think. Is that one down there? I think it's that one down there. Okay. When you're trying to get the pictures of all the things and then also make sure that you get the descriptions of all the things. Okay, I think this one is spoon with buffalo and other animal. So this is the buffalo, I think, water buffalo. And then this is some other little animal that's like crawling down the front of the buffalo's face. So this is the Guro people, Guro, from the Ivory Coast. Among the Guro of Côte d'Ivoire, which is the Ivory Coast, intricately decorated spoons were symbols of wealth, reserved for special occasions and esteemed guests. Some featured animal motifs, such as buffaloes or other mammals, although their original meanings have since faded. Carefully safeguarded by their owners, these spoons were treasured heirlooms reflecting both status and artistic refinement. So this is late 19th, early 20th century. And I mean, just aside from the carved animal, look at the stem of the spoon. How it's got these little rings. I mean, it doesn't have to have that to function as a spoon, right? But these makers include these embellishments just, because it delights people, And I imagine that if it did have a cultural or religious or spiritual significance also would be important. So this little animal... Which little animal is this? Bear with me. This one is... Okay. This is spoon with animal. I'm guessing they don't know what animal this is. This is for the Sakalava people, Madagascar. So this is some type of little Madagascaran animal. Some sort of little mammal, I guess. This one is a diving duck. And this is from Java. And all it says is spoon with diving ducks. You can see, if I took a better picture of it, no. You can see that the duck bill is here. It's like the duck bill is holding the bowl of the spoon in its mouth. And then you see here's its tail, and that this is its neck and its head. So very cool. And I mean, I just love the idea of you don't need this fanciness in a spoon. You just need the spoon to operate as a spoon. But the creativity to do that it's a duck holding, that's so cool. So this is a spoon with a whale motif from French Polynesia. 19th century, that's all we know. This is it says spoon with an animal, and this is the one that's the Baule, Baule people, late 19th, early 20th century, and it's Ivory Coast again. There's a lot of different groups there. And then this one is also the same Baule people, and this is a bird, and then this is a mask right here. Can't see very well. Okay, these probably recognize if you've ever eaten wontons. These are soup spoons from China, early to mid 20th century, but they're just so pretty. These two, they've got this carving into the porcelain. This one's got some gold that's in the glaze, and then this one is just so simple yet so pretty. And this one says 20th century. I would imagine this one's probably very new. And they're all unidentified makers, which tell me that they're probably from like a company. They're not made necessarily by like some master craftsman. They're made by like a porcelain flatware / dishware / soup spoon maker. And then these are actually not spoon shaped. But at the beginning it said that the spoons are used for different things, and these are actually used for cooking the porridge that people in Burkina Faso often eat. And so this is what it says. These spoons are used in the cooking of staple foods eaten by the Bois people of Burkina Faso. These include a thick millet porridge called to. I'm sure that's pronounced differently than I'm pronouncing. It's T-O, but the O has like the little thing over it. So I don't know how that changes the pronunciation of the O. But so thick millet porridge and a variety of sauces, which might include greens, ground peanuts, dried fish, okra, and hot peppers. The semicircular shape of the stirring end of the sauce spoon, so that's this, mimics the crest of an important mask worn during ceremonies held as the rainy season approaches. The Bois are subsistence farmers, and many aspects of their culture refer to the agricultural cycle and their dependence on the land. So, I'm sorry. These are the sauce stirrers that have this little point on the top. This is the millet porridge stirrer. And I took a kind of a... Oh, shoot. I thought I took a picture of the side view of it. But basically, it's kind of flat, a little bit convex on both sides. So it does not have a traditional bowl. It is a stirrer. So with that in mind, I suppose that the things that you get like at the like coffee shops or at convenience stores for stirring your coffee are technically spoons, even if they don't have a bowl, because it's the action of stirring. Okay. These, look at this. I mean, look at this carving on this. So pretty. So intricate. And even though these are large, it still that's a lot that goes into that carving for something that's a utilitarian item. Again, unless it's got some type of like cultural / religious / spiritual significance, to me it's fascinating when people want to decorate a thing that is purely utilitarian. And I love it, because how boring would our world be if all we just had were just straight up spoons, with nothing interesting about them. And let's see, I'm a bad person. I don't think I got the specifics for these. I forgot to take a picture of the bad cake. I don't remember where these are from. I'm not even going to venture to guess, because when I guessed earlier, I was wrong. Okay, and then this. At first, I looked at this and was like, oh, what is this? I thought this might be something old. So you can see it's like forged. It's nested. These little spoons are nested. That's not actually forged, I don't think. If I remember, here's the front view of it. You can see like measuring spoons. I think they're not actually forged. Right. So they look like this very heavy, like cast iron or something, but they're actually carved walnut. So they are made by an artist named Adam John Manley. They were made in 2024. So these are brand new. These are not anything that is ancient, as I had thought at first. When I saw them across the room, I was like, what? So this is what he has to say. He's an artist from San Diego, and the materials are walnut with bronze screws. So there's screws that screw into this little piece up here. And it's actually displayed like on a lucite thing, but it's meant to go on a wall. And so this is what he says, or what is said about his work. Adam John Manley's Measured, which is the title of this piece, is a set of nesting spoons hand-carved from walnut, linked together by a wall-mounted shackle. So that's this U-shaped thing with a bar at the top. They are ostensibly functional tools rendered useless by their mounting technique. Shaped using a carving gouge and a small knife, the spoons are faceted, lumpy, and feature marks left over from the hand tools on their surface. And that's why I thought they were like hammered, because the surface texture that he's left on them. He has not sanded them down to something that's very, very smooth. Displaying visible character, the work is generally smooth to the touch, but it's still got the marks in it, so it's not like perfectly satin. This process of reframing from functional to decorative is something Manley describes as endlessly gratifying, with the hackle acting as a frame or reliquary for the newly useless object. So basically, there's this little thing that would use to mount it on the wall, and then it's got this link. He's calling it a shackle, and then you got the spoons on there, and you can't take them apart. That's the point. This is just for display. So, a set of measuring spoons is rendered useless in this particular piece of work. And I thought that was interesting. So all of these spoons in this exhibit either have some purpose for eating food or preparing food or using in some type of ceremonial aspect. And these are really simple measuring spoons that have been rendered completely useless. So how interesting, right? And that is it. So that is the end of the spoons. And I'm right on time. It's almost 4. Some days I do really good about pacing myself. So, of course, we won't do any reading today because I just had way too much to show you. Now, on Thursday, I think what I'm going to do on Thursday is possibly going to be another non-reading day because I have the other exhibit. There's actually 2 other exhibits. One was pretty small, and I will tell you what they are just so that you'll know. The smaller one was ledger drawings. And if you were ever audience member of Quilt Nerd, Mary Fons showed us some ledger drawings because there were some indigenous quilts that referenced ledger drawings, and there were more modern quilts, but they referenced the ledger drawings. And ledger drawings were they're a significant thing in United States indigenous culture, and the exhibit they had showed some of the original ledger drawings and showed some modern artwork that was inspired by or responding to the ledger drawings. Hey, B of D. It is nice to see you. So I will show those another time, probably on a day where I'm going to read as well because it's a smaller exhibit, and I didn't photograph everything in that exhibit, but it's it's a heart-wrenching story, I can tell you that much. The ledger drawings were made by men who were imprisoned basically for being indigenous, for no other reason. And so that was the other exhibit. And then the main exhibit, the big one, was about Virgin of Guadalupe. However, it's all textiles. So what they did was they looked at, so it's kind of twofold. There's this, I don't know, it's like a program, I guess, of where there are these artisans in South America, Mexico, and I think portions of Central America, who are making these lovely, lovely textiles and incorporating the Virgin of Guadalupe into them. And so all of their artwork is exhibited, and they're traditional garments but made today, if that makes sense. So like the huipils, which are kind of like the poncho like garments, the skirts, those beautiful skirts, the rebozos, which is like the shawl wrap. These are all traditional garments of like pre-Columbian and early Columbian indigenous peoples in Mexico and Central America. So the show is a lot of their work, and then there's the work of some other artists in San Diego and in Mexico. But again, it's all about the Virgin of Guadalupe. So there's a lot of cool stuff to read to you about it. They had like lots of information. This stuff is just absolute eye candy. If you like costume, if you like, Hispanic history, if you like textiles, it is like the most gorgeous thing. So I think I'm going to do that on Thursday, and I am absolutely positive it will be 2 hours because there was so much to look at. I could not stop taking pictures. It's just amazing looking stuff. So that is what Thursday is going to be. And then probably next week we might hit the ledger drawings, and then I'll get back to reading because we are not quite in the home stretch. Where did my book go? Not quite in the home stretch of Carrie Hall. She is getting into like her time period. So the 1930s, I think is, we're getting into like 26 to 1936 in the next chapter. So, she's getting contemporary according to her time. And you guys know she doesn't like anything. She doesn't like ankles. She says, keep your cankles under your skirts, ladies. So we've got some things to contend with. So I don't want to go too long without reading, but I think definitely the rest of this week is going to be San Diego. Yeah. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that. You know what? Real quick before I go, I have 2 other things to show you. I know I mentioned the Mingei's their permanent collection. So downstairs, when you go into the Mingei, you can go into downstairs. Anybody, anytime can go in there. They have this big like cafe thing, and then they have the gift shop, and then they have a small section that is like, I think their permanent collection stuff that they rotate out. So one of the things they had on display was trade signs, and they were very interesting. They're, cool stuff. Like one was like a Japanese restaurant. One was some kind of like knife, like this giant pocket knife, and it was some type of like knife works. Well, this, as you might guess, is a tailor. And I believe it's Norwegian. Let's see. Trade sign. Oh, Sweden. I'm sorry. So Sweden, wood, paint, and copper. This traditional tailor's trade sign clearly conveys the business's purpose with an oversized pair of scissors. So fantastic, right? Like, what a cool thing. I would love a giant pair of scissors. But the pièce de résistance of this small show is this barber sign. So let me read to you what it says. Late 20th century, unidentified maker, Ghana, painted wood barber sign. As with many cultures in West Africa, a hairstyle can convey information about its wearer's status as well as style. Self-taught artists in Ghana paint hairstyles on wooden boards to advertise the array of fashionable options available to potential customers. Sounds great, right? God bless the painter of this, but these are all great. Like, look at these. These are some, very interesting, like, okay, this Nike swoosh, like, they obviously have, culturally in Ghana, ways that they call the different types of hairstyles that might be different than what we would say here in the United States, a fade, whatever. But look at this poor man. This is apparently the cue ball. Look at his eyes. This poor, poor, poor man. They painted his eyes on two totally different planes. All of the other pictures here, these people look great. This poor man. So anyway, I just had to show that. I guess the Nike Air. Swoosh. Indeed, faces are hard, especially getting the eyes level. I just hope that this poor painter, and they're talented. I mean, come on. We cannot all paint heads that, I mean, they're good. They show what the hairstyles are supposed to be, but this, yeah. We need to buy this artist a level so they can at least get the eyes. I just love it so much. And, you know, I mean, this is folk art. This is the kind of thing, like, this is a person who, you know, they're painting for the barbers. They, you know, maybe like the professional barber sign painter, but they've got this like folk art style that is just, it is what it is. And poor man with his weird eyes. Oh gosh. Oh, well, who knows? Maybe it is a birth defect. Poor man. In any event, he has quite a dome. And apparently that expensive haircut barbershop can get you a nice shiny dome if that's your desire. So, all right, you guys. So tomorrow, Jill and I will be back for Quilt Nerding, and we are working through Portable Patchwork, our friend Pam Weeks' wonderful book. And I have to touch base with Jill about showing Arlene's pieces because they are fantastic. I don't know when we'll show those, but I got those pictures specifically for Quilt Nerding, so you want to keep an eye out for that. On Thursday, like I said, I will do the Virgin of Guadalupe exhibit from the Mingei, which is, again, the eye candy. I can't even. You guys will absolutely love it. And then next week we'll be back to normal. So I do think, if I'm remembering correctly, next week, I think Thursday might be a vacation day for Cake. So I might need to cancel the show that day. I have to look at the calendar. I can't remember. I travel so hard, right? All right, you guys, have a wonderful day. Happy Monday. I hope you have a fantastic week. I hope that your weather is cool and comfortable and spring-like and not at all humid like the East Coast. Boo hiss. It is so good to see you back. And yeah, love you guys so much. Mwah, mwah. I will see you soon. Bye.